Let's talk. I remember my first few years in the SCA. As I've said before, and probably will say many times again, I was largely a fighter. That was my primary focus. And I will never forget, it was a Norman medieval fair, early 2000s. I want to say 2001, 2002. And that particular year, and there were a couple of years where this happened, Medfair was kind of an interesting place on the calendar. And let me tell you why. So, Medfair was a huge demo opportunity for us. That was where all the groups in the northern part of Onstera like to try and get together and put on a huge SCA encampment and huge recruitment potential there. And this was well before social media really moved into the SCA, so that was our major chance to get the word out. And there was usually a lot of fighters. It was a big fighting opportunity, and I was one of the guys that hauled his armor out there to fight. However, it was also the weekend before Summer Crown Tournament. Might have been Fall Crown Tournament. Yeah. No, it wasn't fall because it was March. Yeah, it was right before Spring Crown Tournament or whatever it was. It was right before Crown Tournament is the point. And yeah, a couple of the guys who were there were kind of more geared for Crown Tournament than they were for the showmanship demo level fighting that you like to see at Medfair. And whew, there were a couple of really nice shots landed that day. One of the fighters who was out was Count Sir Barn Silveraxe, who's this monster tall guy. And to give you an idea, I am with my shoes on, with the 3/4 inch heel that I wear on my shoes. I'm 6'3", 3 1/4 or something. And Barn was an inch plus taller than me. He was huge. Still is huge. And he was out there fighting Greatsword. And I can't remember how we got to this point, but we were fighting King of the Hill, or Bear Pit, or however you want to call it. This particular format was guy steps in the middle and just fights everyone until until he loses, and then the new winner has to defend the center of the hill. And we were all going through, and Barn went out there and he clobbered a few people. And I say clobber because there is no polite and delicate way to kill someone with a great sword. When that thing hits you, it's a seismic event. Just swamped a few guys, and then I want to say it was Defeath went out there and managed to get a leg shot on him. And but at the same time, as soon as Defeath got the leg shot, Barn actually managed to catch him across the helmet with a headshot. I think 2 strikes later. So that was still a win for Barn. But he's now on his knees with a greatsword. I mean, half of a greatsword's defense is mobility, and we've just legged this guy. Oh, yeah, we were like, okay, this isn't going to last much longer. And I remember someone else went out. It was another knight. I can't remember who it was, but I remember it was another white belt. And he squares up, and God, you could see it in his eyes. He's like, I've got a past crown of Onstera on his knees in front of me with a pole, effectively a pole arm, but a great sword, and I'm sitting here sword and board. He's like, I'm going to get me some. He didn't say that, but you could see the look in his eyes to this grill plate. He was geared up. He goes out there, and it was an ugly, tough. Of course, any sword and board against a grounded greatsword, that's going to be ugly. But Barn blocked 3 of his shots, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, you watch the tip of this greatsword come around and just wallop this guy right in the ribs. Oh, yeah, it knocked him back. Good hit, and it didn't hurt him. I mean, I think he had a coat of plates on, but solid shot. And this guy rocked. He goes, good, and he walked out the field. And then someone else went out and got killed, and someone else went out and got killed. And I had, for the record, I had popped my helmet at that point. I'd done a bunch of back-to-back fights. I was exhausted. I was on the verge of overheating. So I was sitting back watching all this, drinking a lot of water. Barn went through the entire lineup of currently armored fighters twice. I think it was, at that point, there was like 8 guys in armor. So he had 16 fights. At least 10 of them on his knees. And no one could kill him. And I think it was after that 16th fight, a new guy walked in. A new guy jumped into the rotation. He was a late arrival. He was getting armored up for all this. And all of a sudden, he steps out on the field. And it's a new fighter. This guy's mid to late 20s ish, loner armor with a lot of duct tape on. I mean, all of the hallmarks were there. This was a rookie. He is going up against a man who has just waylaid a whole bunch of Grant and peerage level fighters from a egregiously bad, disadvantaged position, and he was still commanding the field. Okay, this guy had to know he was walking into a meat grinder at this point. And he takes a half step out, he's got his sword up, his shield up, and he pauses, and he's about 12, 13 feet away. He's not within weapons range. And he goes, "My lord, would you like to yield?" And as soon as he said that, you watch the sword drop. You watch Barnes just drop a sword. And he goes, "Oh, thank God, I thought no one was going to ask." And he popped up and he walks past the guy and he goes, "Field's yours, have a nice day," and just walks off the edge of the field. And I remember all 8 of the guys before him, all 8 of the other fighters, including all the Knights and all of the Grants, were all doing this. Because you're supposed to ask. That's the courtesy. That's the rule. I don't know if it's written down anywhere, but that's the social contract. If someone's on the ground, even if they fought 8 other people, you're supposed to check to make sure he's cool to fight. And none of them did that. So I jokingly like to say that the story there is, how do you take a knight off of the field? The answer is, you start by asking. But the more realistic side of that, and this is not a unique story, is that sometimes it does take the rookie to remind us that our reasons for being out there are not only victory. Courtesy, honor, integrity, these all go hand in hand, and when one slips, it diminishes the other 2. 8 guys each had at least 2 shots, or at least 1 shot each. Most of them had 2 chances to ask this guy, to ask Barn, "Would you like to yield the field?" They all forgot. And we can laugh about it, we can joke about it, because it wasn't a tournament, it was just effectively a fun practice. But it also was a very important lesson learned. And to this day, I don't remember the name of the fighter. I remember who Barn was because I knew Barn, but I don't remember the name of the fighter or remembered. But I'll never forget that lesson. And I have taken that lesson to heart, both on and off the field. There have been times where, in social engagements, I had a position of unequivocal advantage where I could have just pounced. I could have just said, well, this is the way it's going to be, or I could have said, you're wrong, or I could have moved in with unbridled aggression, or just overruled someone. But instead, I took a half step back and said, hey, do we want to talk about this for a minute? See if we can come to an agreement before we have to lay all cards down and turn this into an argument. And I consider those situations the better examples a lot of the time. What about you? What are some examples you have like that? What types of memories does this story inspire from you, whether you were a participant or you were a witness? Either or are valid. Let me know. Tell me down in the comments below. But that's all I have for you today. I appreciate you joining me. Until next time, I'll see you at the next event. Until then, goodbye. God bless.